Our forces are spread thin, but this is a critical junction. We must hold the line.
We have lost contact with the forward fleet. Prepare all available forces for immediate deployment.
The chamber of the Galactic Council was unlike anything Earth had ever seen. It floated at the heart of the neutral star system, a place where hundreds of civilizations came together to make decisions that shaped the destiny of the galaxy. The ceiling arched like an endless dome of stars shimmering with artificial light. Voices of countless species echoed through the hall, some soft like whispers of wind, others deep and thunderous, each carrying the weight of entire worlds. For humanity, this was supposed to be a moment of hope. It was their chance to stand before the ancient powers and ask for justice. Earth had sent its ambassador, a woman named Alara Hayes, chosen not only for her knowledge of diplomacy but also for her calm strength. She walked with quiet confidence as she entered the chamber, though her heart carried the weight of millions of her people suffering under the Krell Dominion's attacks. The Krell were an old, powerful species, reptilian in form, ruthless in practice. For months they had raided human colonies along the outer rim. Mining stations had been burned. Settlers had fled in terror. Entire families had been forced to abandon their homes. Earth had fought back where it could, but their fleets were small compared to the Dominion's endless warships. Humanity had hoped the Council would stop the Krell, or at least force them into peace. When Alara stepped forward, silence filled the chamber. She lifted her head, her voice steady, though her heart trembled. "Honored Council members," she began, "I stand before you not as a beggar of mercy, but as a voice of truth. Humanity entered the stars with hope, believing we would find allies, friends, and wisdom. Instead, we have found cruelty. Our colonies burn, our people are hunted. We come here not asking for war, but for justice. Will this council defend peace, or will it allow the Krell to continue their attacks unchecked?" Her words echoed in the chamber. For a moment there was silence. Then the voices began to rise. The representative of the Thalorians, beings of light and crystal, spoke first. "Humanity is young. You must understand, disputes at the borders are common. The Krell have long-standing claims in those sectors. Perhaps you encroached without knowledge." Ilara's eyes narrowed. "Encroached? These were unclaimed stars when we settled them. The Krell came after we built homes there." The Krell ambassador, a tall, scaled figure with burning yellow eyes, hissed in reply. His voice was sharp, like blades scraping together. "The humans speak lies. They spread like fire, consuming worlds that do not belong to them. The Krell only act to protect their rightful territory." Murmurs spread across the chamber. Some species nodded, agreeing with the Krell. Others looked uncertain. To them, humanity was new, a race barely a century into interstellar travel. Compared to civilizations that had stood for thousands of years, Earth seemed like a child demanding to sit at the table of elders. The Speaker of the Council, an ancient being from the Selith Union, finally called for order. "We have heard both sides. The matter will be decided." Alara stood still, her heart pounding. She remembered the faces of the refugees she had seen before leaving Earth, the children clinging to their parents, the workers who had lost everything, the veterans who had already fought too many battles. All of them had looked to the Council as a final hope. She prayed silently that the galaxy would not turn its back. The votes were cast. One by one, the glowing sigils of the Council members lit up around the chamber. The results appeared above in shimmering light for all to see. The Council would not intervene. Alara's chest tightened. She could barely believe it. After all the evidence, after all the pleas, the Great Galactic Council had chosen neutrality. The Speaker's voice carried across the chamber. "The Council finds that the conflict between humanity and the Krell Dominion is a border dispute. We shall not interfere. Both parties are encouraged to find peace by their own means." A wave of whispers filled the room. Some representatives looked away, avoiding Alara's gaze. The Krell ambassador allowed a slow, smug smile to creep across his reptilian face. Alara felt her strength falter, but she refused to bow her head. She stood tall, though her voice trembled as she replied, "You call this a border dispute? Entire cities have fallen, thousands have died, and you say this is not your concern? Then hear this: humanity will not forget. If the Council will not act, then Earth will remember this day when our cries for help were ignored." The chamber fell silent. For a heartbeat, it seemed her words had struck something in them. a quiet unease. But then the speaker dismissed her. The session was ended. Humanity's plea was denied. Ilara left the chamber with slow, steady steps. Her face revealed no tears, no weakness, but inside she felt as if a blade had been driven through her heart. Outside, in the silent corridors, she let out a long breath and whispered to herself, "So be it." Across the galaxy, news spread quickly. The Council had abandoned Earth. To some, it was unsurprising. Why risk peace for the sake of a young, fragile species? To others, it was a mistake. But no one expected what would come next. For while the Council believed humanity would retreat, would hide, would lick their wounds in silence, they had underestimated something far older than technology, far stronger than fleets and weapons. They had underestimated the human spirit. When the Council's verdict was announced, humanity fell into silence. It was not the silence of surrender, nor the silence of despair. It was the kind of silence that comes before a storm, heavy and still, carrying the weight of hidden strength. The galaxy expected Earth to break. The Krell Dominion expected them to plead once more or collapse under pressure. But Earth did none of these things. Instead, their diplomats returned home. Their trade ships withdrew from foreign ports. Human fleets stopped appearing on routine patrols near Council borders. And slowly, like stars vanishing from the night sky, humanity's presence in galactic affairs grew faint. At first, many species laughed. "The humans have learned their place," said some. "They will remain quiet now." Others pitied them. "They are young," the elder races whispered. "Too fragile for the cruelty of space." But no one realized the truth. While the galaxy looked away, Earth was preparing. The quiet withdrawal's Admiral Jonathan Reeves stood in the command hall of Earth's defense fleet, staring at the holographic map of human space. The glowing dots that marked colonies and outposts were fewer now. Mining stations along the rim had been abandoned. Trade hubs were shuttered. Civilian ships had been called back under strict orders. To outsiders, it seemed like retreat. But Reeves knew better. Each evacuation was careful, deliberate. Valuable resources were moved in silence. Families were relocated to fortified systems. Old warships once retired were called back into service and refitted. "Sir," said one of his officers, "reports from the frontier are complete. All remaining civilians have been moved from Arcturus Station. Only defense units remain." Reeves nodded. "Good. Let the galaxy believe we are weak. When the storm comes, they will not see us until it is too late." The whispers in the stars soon. Strange stories began to spread across the trade routes. Merchants who ventured near human borders spoke of empty stations where life once thrived. Patrols sent by curious neighbors reported silence. No signals, no activity. As though entire settlements had simply vanished. Some claimed they saw shadows moving in the void. Ships of strange design, darker than space itself. They carried no markings, no signals, and disappeared before sensors could lock onto them. No one could confirm the sightings, but the whispers grew. A merchant from the Velari Confederation described it best. It was like the humans had become ghosts. They are there but unseen, watching. The Council dismissed these tales as superstition. "The humans are grieving," they said. "They are licking their wounds." But doubt began to take root in some hearts. Refugees and memories on Earth itself, the silence was heavy but purposeful. Cities bustled with movement. Factories ran day and night, and training academies overflowed with volunteers. The pain of loss had not broken them, it had hardened them. Among the refugees, stories of Krell cruelty passed from mouth to mouth. Families remembered how their homes had been taken, how they had fled into the cold of space with nothing but hope. Children remembered the fear in their parents' eyes. Workers remembered leaving behind mines and machines that had taken decades to build. But instead of despair, these memories turned into fire. When asked why they trained so hard, one young refugee answered simply, "Because we have no other home to run to." The silence of Earth was not weakness. It was discipline. The Krell's mistake, meanwhile, the Krell Dominion grew arrogant. They believed humanity had been broken by the Council's refusal. Their fleets began to push deeper into former human colonies, taking resources and setting up new bases. The Krell ambassador even mocked Earth during one council meeting. "The humans are a fragile flame," he declared proudly, "and the wind has blown them out." But he was wrong. The flame had not gone out. It had been hidden, shielded from the wind, burning hotter in the shadows. Ilara's return ambassador Ilara Hayes returned to Earth after the Council's betrayal. Though her heart carried sorrow, her spirit did not bend. She visited the refugee camps, spoke with soldiers, and walked through the factories where workers built machines of war. Everywhere she went, she saw the same thing: quiet determination. Not loud anger, not reckless cries, but a calm, deep resolve. It was as if the whole of humanity shared the same thought. If no one will defend us, then we will defend ourselves. In a private meeting with Earth's leaders, Ilara spoke with clarity. The galaxy sees us as weak because we are young. But youth is not weakness. Youth is fire. We will not beg again. Let us prepare not to survive, but to remind them who we are. Her words echoed through the chamber of Earth's leaders. The silence that followed was not hesitation. It was agreement. The builders of Shadow Soon, Earth's greatest minds, were called to secret projects. Engineers, scientists, and tacticians worked together like never before. Old technologies were reshaped and new designs were born. Factories hidden deep within asteroid belts produced ships unlike anything the galaxy had seen. They were built not for display but for purpose, fast, silent, deadly. Weapons were crafted with precision, not to cause chaos, but to strike with certainty. Every resource was measured. Every plan was calculated. Humanity had no luxury of waste. But what they lacked in wealth, they made up for in will. Let the Krell think us broken, Reeves told his captains. When we return, they will not see a wounded prey. They will see the hunter. The growing unease months passed. The silence of humanity grew heavier. Trade routes that once shone with human ships were empty. Stations that once welcomed visitors now stood cold and dark. Neighbors began to worry. A Seleth observer whispered to his council, "The humans have vanished into their own shadows. I do not like it. It feels as though they are waiting." But the Krell laughed at such fears. To them, silence meant defeat. "The humans hide," their commanders said. "Let them hide. It will not save them." They did not understand that the silence was not hiding. It was preparation. The heart of humanity in the quiet of night on Earth, a child asked his mother, "Why does no one help us?" His mother smiled sadly and brushed his hair. "Because sometimes we must help ourselves." That simple truth became the heart of humanity's silence. Every worker in the factories, every soldier in training, every pilot waiting for the call, they carried that truth within them. The galaxy had turned its back. But humanity had turned inward, drawing strength from its pain, from its memories, from its unity. The calm. Before the storm, by the end of the year, the galaxy barely remembered the humans. Other conflicts rose, other disputes demanded attention. The Krell expanded further, boasting of their new holdings. The Council carried on with its endless debates, but in the quiet corners of space, far from curious eyes, humanity was no longer silent. Fleets waited in the darkness, hidden among asteroids and drifting shadows. Pilots sharpened their skills in secret drills. Leaders whispered strategies that would change the galaxy forever. The silence was not defeat. It was patience, and patience for humanity was a weapon as sharp as any blade. The galaxy believed humanity had faded. The Council no longer spoke of them. Traders moved on to other routes. Even the Krell Dominion, greedy for new worlds, began to treat Earth as nothing more than a fading ember in the stars. But an ember can ignite into fire. The Krell offensive, it began when the Krell launched their second great push. Their fleet surged into what had once been human territory. Hundreds of ships, armored and armed, moved with pride. To the Krell, this was not war. It was conquest. Admiral Vorkal of the Krell Dominion stood on the command deck of his flagship, a towering reptilian figure cloaked in authority. His scaled hands tapped the railing as he watched the stars. "Today," he told his officers, "we erase the last memory of humanity's colonies. By the time the Council even notices, these systems will bear the banner of the Krell forever." His officers hissed their agreement. They expected easy victory. After all, the First War had shown humans were inexperienced, fragile, and outnumbered. The Krell believed nothing had changed. But they were wrong. Shadows in the void as the Krell Armada advanced. Their sensors began to detect strange movements. At first, it was only small things, blips of energy, faint trails, signals that appeared and vanished. They assumed it was debris or malfunction. Then one night in the deep black between stars, a Krell patrol ship reported seeing a massive shadow moving in silence. It bore no lights, no signals, no markings. Before they could investigate, their transmission ended abruptly. When other patrols were sent, they found nothing but fragments of the missing ship, floating cold and silent. The Krell dismissed it as an accident. But the truth was far more dangerous. Humanity had returned. The silent fleet deep within the darkness of space, Admiral Jonathan Reeves gave the order. His ships, once hidden, once silent, moved like hunters into the light. These were not the same fleets the Krell had faced before. These ships were built in secret, forged in Earth's silence. They were dark, angular vessels designed to bend shadows around them. Their weapons were not for show but for precision. Reeves stood tall in the command center of his flagship, the Resolute. Around him, young officers worked with quiet focus. Many of them were refugees whose homes had been lost. Their eyes burned with the same fire. This was not just a mission, it was justice. "Targets in sight," reported a lieutenant. Reeves nodded. His voice was calm. "Then let us remind the Krell who we are." The first strike. The Krell Armada reached the former human colony of Meridian Prime, expecting no resistance. The planet's cities had long been abandoned, left in ruins after the First War. Krell engineers began preparations to build a new base. Then the stars shifted. From the void, the human fleet emerged. At first, the Krell thought they were seeing ghosts, shadows shaped like ships. But then the shadows moved, swift and deadly. Human vessels descended in silence, weapons glowing with controlled energy. Without warning, the first barrage struck. Krell warships exploded in bursts of fire, their shields shattered before they could respond. Panic swept through the Krell ranks. They had expected resistance, yes, but not like this. Not with such precision, not with such power. One Krell commander shouted, "It's impossible. The humans, how did they build this?" But there was no time for answers. Humanity's retaliation had begun, the Battle of Meridian Prime. The fight was swift but merciless. Human ships moved in perfect coordination, striking not at random but with purpose. They cut through the Krell fleet like blades of light. Admiral Reeves watched the battlefield unfold on the holographic display. He spoke few words, only commands as sharp as steel. Target their flagship, disable escape routes, leave no opening. His officers obeyed without hesitation. Each strike was calculated. Each move carried the weight of every lost home, every fallen life. Within hours, the great Krell Armada that had arrived with such pride was reduced to wreckage, drifting in silence. Their flagship, once a symbol of dominance, was torn apart in front of their eyes. For the first time in generations, the Krell had been defeated. Not by accident, not by chance, but by design. The galaxy trembles. News of the battle spread faster than light. Merchants carried whispers across the stars. Scouts reported wreckage fields where Krell ships once stood proud. At first, the Council refused to believe it. It cannot be the humans, some said. They were too weak, too unprepared. But as more reports arrived, the truth became undeniable. Humanity had not been destroyed. They had not retreated into silence. They had used that silence to sharpen themselves into something far stronger. The galaxy trembled. A message in the wreckage among the ruins of the Krell flagship. Human ships left a message. It was not a broadcast, not a threat shouted into the void. It was something simpler, something deeper. On the shattered hull of the Krell's command vessel, scorched into the metal by human fire, were 3 words written in the universal trade tongue. We remember everything. When the wreckage was discovered, those words spread through every council chamber, every marketplace, every fleet. They were not words of war. They were words of memory, of justice. And they carried a warning. Humanity would not forget betrayal. The Council reacts. The Galactic Council convened in urgency. The chamber that once laughed at Earth's pleas now rang with unease. Representatives spoke over one another, their voices filled with disbelief. How could they build such power in silence? Cried one. They were young, untested, shouted another. The Krell ambassador, pale with rage, hissed across the chamber. This is impossible. The humans were broken. But the Council could not deny the evidence. The wreckage fields were real. The reports were clear. Humanity had struck not recklessly, but with chilling precision. For the first time in living memory, the great Galactic Council felt something it had never felt from Earth before. Fear. The human spirit back on Earth, Admiral Reeves stood with his officers. They did not cheer their victory. There were no parades, no celebrations. Their faces carried solemn pride but also sorrow. For every Krell ship destroyed, they remembered the lives already lost. Reeves spoke softly to his crew. "This is only the beginning. We did not fight today to conquer. We fought to remind the galaxy that humanity will not be erased." The crew saluted him, their silence louder than any words. Humanity had made its choice. They would no longer beg. They would no longer wait for help that would never come. They would stand, and they would strike when needed. The dawn of retaliation. In the weeks that followed, more Krell strongholds fell. Human fleets struck with speed, vanishing before reinforcements arrived. No longer did they defend, they retaliated. And everywhere they went, they left behind the same message, etched into metal, burned into stone. We remember everything. The galaxy now understood. Humanity was not fighting out of anger alone. They fought with memory, with discipline, with a quiet fire that could not be extinguished. The Council, once speechless at their pleas, now found themselves speechless at their power, and this was only the beginning. The great chamber of the Galactic Council had seen many crises across the centuries. Wars had been debated here, treaties signed, and peace restored countless times. But never had the chamber felt the weight it carried now. For the first time in living memory, the Council stood divided, not over politics, not over trade, but over fear. Whispers of a new power, news of humanity's retaliation, had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Reports of Krell war fleets destroyed in hours, of strongholds reduced to silence, filled every communication channel. Merchants whispered in disbelief. Soldiers of other empires listened with unease. How had the humans, considered weak, young, and inexperienced, accomplished this? In the council chamber, representatives murmured among themselves before the meeting began. The Velari spoke in hushed tones, their shimmering forms flickering nervously. The crystalline Thalorians hummed low notes of worry, their light dimmed. Even the proud Avarith, a species known for arrogance, spoke quietly, their usual bravado replaced with doubt. At the center of it all sat the Krell ambassador. His scales had lost their luster, his yellow eyes narrowed with anger. He had once spoken boldly, mocking humanity. Now he seethed in silence, his pride wounded by their unexpected power. The session begins. The Speaker of the Council, an ancient Sealith whose form seemed to glow with age, called the meeting to order. His voice echoed across the chamber. "We gather today in response to disturbing reports. The Krell Dominion has suffered great losses at the hands of humanity. Entire fleets have been destroyed. Strongholds erased. This chamber must face the truth. Humanity is no longer silent." The words struck like thunder. For a moment no one spoke. Then the uproar began. The Avarith representative slammed his claws on the table. "How can this be? The humans begged for our help not long ago. They were desperate, powerless." A Thalorian answered, his crystalline voice sharp. "Perhaps we underestimated them. Perhaps silence was not surrender, but preparation." The Krell ambassador rose to his feet, his scales rippling with fury. "Lies, deceptions. The humans could not build such fleets in so little time. Someone aids them. Some other power gives them weapons. We demand the Council uncover their ally." But no evidence of allies could be found. Humanity had acted alone. Evidence on the table at that moment, a council aide placed fragments of metal on the central table, wreckage taken from the destroyed Krell fleets. Burned into the twisted steel was the same message that had been found again and again: "We remember everything." The chamber fell into silence. The message was not a declaration of conquest. It was not a call for allies. It was something far more unsettling. It was a reminder that humanity had not forgotten their losses, their pleas for help, or the Council's refusal. The words seemed to stare back at every representative in the room, as if accusing them all. The fear of the elders for the elder races. Fear came not only from humanity's new strength, but from their strategy. Humanity had not fought recklessly, had not sought glory. They had struck with precision, dismantling their enemies step by step. That kind of discipline was something even ancient powers respected and feared. The Velari representative spoke softly, their voice trembling like wind. "If humans could do this in silence, what more can they do if they continue to prepare? What will they become in a century? Or a millennium? Another answered, "Perhaps they will become the greatest force the galaxy has ever seen." The chamber grew restless. The Krell's outrage, unable to contain himself. The Krell ambassador roared, his voice shaking the walls. "This council fails in its duty. We warned you humans spread like fire. Now they come for us all. If you do not act, the Krell Dominion will strike humanity with everything we have." But his threats only deepened the unease. The council had once dismissed humanity's pleas. If they now ignored the Krell's warnings, what would happen? Some whispered that perhaps the Krell had provoked humanity's wrath through their greed. Others argued that the council itself had caused this, by refusing to intervene when Earth begged for help. The guilt in the air was heavy. The debate of responsibility, for hours, voices rose and fell. Some argued humanity should be punished, that such retaliation threatened galactic peace. Others said humanity had every right to defend itself after being abandoned. The Seleth speaker finally asked, "Who among us will speak for humanity?" No one answered. Not a single ambassador from other species wished to bear the weight of explaining humanity's silence and vengeance. They had all turned their backs once before. Now when Earth's power was revealed, they dared not speak for or against them. The emptiness of that silence filled the chamber like a wound. The arrival of truth, then, without warning, the great doors of the council chamber opened. A figure walked inside, her steps echoing in the vast hall. It was Alara Hayes, Earth's ambassador. The chamber froze. No one had expected her return. She had left months ago in quiet dignity, carrying humanity's rejection in her heart. Now she stood once more, her presence commanding attention, though she carried no army, no weapons. Her eyes swept across the chamber, meeting those of the representatives who had once dismissed her. She did not raise her voice, but when she spoke, the hall seemed to listen more carefully than ever before. "You denied us when we begged for peace. You turned away when our people suffered. And now you ask why humanity has struck back. We did not want war. We wanted only justice. But when justice was denied, we chose survival." Her words rang with calm clarity, sharper than any weapon. The council listens. Some representatives tried to protest. One cried, "You go too far, Ambassador. You endanger us all." But Alara did not flinch. "We endanger no one who does not endanger us. We do not seek conquest. We do not seek to rule. We seek only to live without fear." The Krell would not allow that. "And you—" She looked around the chamber, her gaze steady, chose to let them. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with shame. The shock of memory. Alara placed her hand on the fragments of wreckage lying on the table. She traced the scorched words with her fingers. "We remember everything." "This is not a threat," she said. "It is a truth. We remember our dead. We remember your silence. We remember every voice that said we were too small, too weak, too young, and because we remember, we will not fall again." Her voice did not rise. She spoke softly, but the chamber felt as though a storm had passed through it. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council had no reply. The turning point when Alara finished, she did not bow, nor did she plead. She simply turned and began to leave. Her footsteps echoed in the silent hall. Not a single ambassador called after her. Not a single voice rose in protest. The speaker, ancient and wise, finally spoke in a hushed tone. "The humans have spoken, and we are silent." It was the most honest truth the council had spoken in years. The weight of the future. After Alara left, the council remained in uneasy quiet. The representatives shifted nervously, their eyes avoiding one another. They knew the galaxy had changed. Humanity, once dismissed as fragile, had shown a strength that could not be ignored. The council, once proud, now faced the shadow of their own failure. Some feared humanity's rise. Others respected it. But none could deny it. The galaxy's balance of power had shifted forever. And for the first time, the elder races realized Earth had not just entered history. Earth was now writing it. The chamber of the Galactic Council stood in a silence it had never known before. The great hall, usually filled with endless voices, arguments, and speeches, now felt like a tomb of echoes. Every ambassador, every representative of the elder races stared at the door where Alara Hayes had walked out moments ago. Her words still lingered in the air. "We remember everything." The council, a body that had judged countless species and shaped the destiny of civilizations, found itself without an answer. For the first time in memory, they were speechless. The aftermath of Alara's words across the galaxy, the reaction to Alara's quiet defiance spread like ripples across water. Worlds that had once mocked humanity now whispered in awe. Species that had ignored Earth now debated in their halls whether it was wise to approach them as enemies or as potential allies. The message was simple, but it cut through every corner of the galaxy. Humanity was no longer asking. Humanity was deciding. On distant planets, merchants repeated the story of the human ambassador who walked into the council chamber alone and silenced hundreds of voices with a single truth. Soldiers in faraway fleets told each other of the human retaliation, of fleets that struck like shadows and vanished before anyone could respond. A single question spread. If this is what humanity can do in silence, what will they do in the future? The council's doubt within the council, the unease grew heavier with each passing day. Meetings became restless. The Krell demanded war, insisting that the humans be crushed before they grew even stronger. But other species were hesitant. The Thalorians, beings of crystal and light, spoke in calm tones. We once dismissed them as fragile. We cannot afford the same mistake twice. Humanity has shown not only strength but discipline. That is far more dangerous. The Velari, their forms flickering like shifting mist, added softly, and they fight not for conquest, but for memory. Such a cause cannot be extinguished with fleets. Even the proud Avarith, who had once laughed at humanity's pleas, lowered their heads. Perhaps we judged them too quickly. Perhaps we feared the wrong fire. The Krell ambassador hissed in anger, but his words no longer held the same power. The council was no longer united in supporting him. Humanity had forced doubt into the heart of the galaxy's greatest assembly. Humanity's quiet strength back on Earth, the people did not celebrate victory as conquerors. There were no songs of glory, no grand parades. Instead, there was steady work. Factories continued to build. Fleets continued to train. Scientists continued to design. Humanity understood that this was not the end of the journey, but only the beginning. Admiral Reeves stood before his fleet. The officers gathered in disciplined rows. "We are not here to rule the galaxy," he told them. "We are here to make sure no one ever decides our fate again. That is our duty, not only to ourselves, but to those who were lost when no one else came to help." The officers saluted in silence. They did not need words. The fire in their eyes spoke enough. The worlds that watched on, distant worlds, young species looked to Earth with new inspiration. Many had long felt ignored by the council, their voices dismissed as small. Now they saw humanity rise from rejection to strength, and they whispered, "If they can do it, perhaps so can we." The elder races, who once ruled with certainty, felt a new weight pressing against them. They realized the galaxy was changing, and Earth was at the center of that change. The council summons. Again weeks later, the Galactic Council called for another session. The chamber was filled once more with voices, but this time those voices carried caution. The Speaker of the Council addressed the assembly. "We face a new question. Humanity has shown strength none of us expected. They have not declared war on this council, nor sought to expand beyond what was taken from them. But their silence, their precision, their retaliation, these things cannot be ignored. The question before us is not whether humanity exists. The question is, how shall we exist beside them?" It was a question no one could easily answer. The silent stare at that moment, the doors opened again. Alara Hayes entered the chamber, her steps calm and steady. Once more the hall grew silent. She carried no weapons, no guards. Only a small piece of wreckage in her hands, the scorched metal of a Krell warship. She placed it gently on the council's central table, as if returning a memory they had all tried to forget. Then she looked around the chamber. Her eyes moved from one ambassador to another. She did not shout. She did not beg. She did not threaten. She simply looked at them, her gaze steady, unblinking. The representatives shifted nervously under her eyes. These were leaders who had faced wars, who had spoken to kings and generals, who commanded entire civilizations. Yet before the silent stare of one human ambassador, they found themselves unable to speak. The Krell ambassador tried to rise, his voice trembling with anger.
"This is insolence."
"How dare—" But his words died under her gaze. Finally, Alara spoke. Her voice was quiet, but it carried across the chamber like thunder in the distance. "You asked what humanity wants. The answer is simple. We want peace, but not peace that depends on your mercy. We want respect, not words but actions. We want safety for our people, and if we must stand alone to have it, then we will stand alone. We will not ask again. Her words were simple, but they struck like blades of truth. The weight of silence. The chamber fell silent once more. No one dared to argue. No one dared to dismiss her. The truth was clear. Humanity had already proven they could not be ignored. To challenge them now would be dangerous. To dismiss them again would be foolish. The Speaker of the Council lowered his head. For the first time in his long life, he felt the shame of failure. "Ambassador Hayes," he said softly, "the Council has no reply." And with that, the chamber fell into a silence so deep it seemed to echo across the stars. The legacy of memory. When Ilara left the chamber for the final time, she did not smile. She did not boast. She simply walked away, carrying with her the quiet dignity of her people. Behind her, the council remained frozen in their silence. Each representative understood what had just happened. The galaxy had changed. The council was no longer the unquestioned voice of order. A new voice had risen, quiet but unshakable, the voice of humanity. Epilogue. The human path back on Earth. Children grew up hearing the story of the council's silence. Teachers spoke of the day when one human ambassador carried the weight of a planet's memory and faced the greatest powers of the galaxy without fear. Strength, they taught, is not only in fleets or weapons. Strength is in memory. Strength is in standing when no one else will stand for you. And so humanity continued forward, not as conquerors but as survivors, not as rulers, but as equals who demanded respect. The galaxy would never forget the silence of that council chamber, because on that day, humanity looked into the eyes of the elder races, and the elder races looked back, speechless.